the most valuable property in the universe is Bitcoin. The second most valuable property in the universe, presumably, is a Bitcoin mining rig that's producing right now. And then after that, you've got these concentric circles. After that, you can own companies that are Bitcoin companies, but they're competitive with each other. Some can win, some can lose. And then you can own non-Bitcoin companies, right? And then some are better than others. Can and we should have two strategies. One strategy is run the software business, and the other strategy is run a property business. We're in essence running a cyber development company or a cyber REIT, if you want. Like if I tell you there's 21 million blocks in cyberspace and each one's a Bitcoin, and the world's going to consist of 21 million blocks, and you showed up there 200 years before everybody else showed up, you would think, I'm just going to start buying city blocks in cyberspace as fast as I can. So we bought ourselves some, and then we realized that there are more to be bought. And so we kept buying. This is a pretty good idea to buy up all of cyber Manhattan before everybody else moves here. And if Bitcoin is appreciating 100% a year, and if I can borrow money at 5% or 1% or 6%, then my arbitrage is going to be 100%. Banks are the enemy of Bitcoin. Companies are the enemy of Bitcoin. Not your keys, not your coin. The government's the enemy of Bitcoin. But the other possibility, which just turns the entire thing on its head, is how would you feel if you woke up tomorrow and you found out that Goldman Sachs did buy $10 billion of Bitcoin and UAE bought 20 billion of Bitcoin? Would you be angry? By the way, your Bitcoin would be trading at like $4 million of Bitcoin. And you could be angry and say, no, give that back to us. I want to go back to $50,000 Bitcoin. Look, if institutions weren't involved in Bitcoin, Bitcoin would be trading at like 8,000 right now. Right? Yeah. If you look at, the last 18 months. So you could we could unwind that and you go back to $8,000 Bitcoin, or you can move forward, but it's just a taste. So, what's my big point here? It's like nobody can predict how the future will evolve, except to make this one observation. People are generally rational and they take the path of least resistance. And so at some point, it's possible that someone's going to buy the Bitcoin, not because they agree that with your most extreme vision of no governments and no companies and living together peacefully in one world currency. Maybe that's not why they're going to do it. Maybe they just want the money, right? Like as far as I can see, the people driving the market in the near term from day to day are large pools of hedge fund capital and investor capital, highly leveraged, fast money that's cross-trading Bitcoin versus every other altcoin offshore and in DeFi with huge leverage. And their time horizons are 1 minute to 1 week. Like, what's the half-life of your money? And I would say the half-life of Bitcoin as money is forever. And the half-life of the dollar as money 10 years ago was 10 years. And the half-life of dollar as money today is 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
Right. And so if you think about, and the half-life of the Bolivar as money might be 3 weeks or 3 days, I don't know. But if we start thinking about these assets in that way, then I think it's kind of helpful, because what you realize is there are very powerful political interests that will designate one asset. And as long as that interest, as long as they exist, as long as the United States exists, they will have some influence. But you don't have to be a victim to what is the word? To the orthodoxy that there can only be one thing that's money. Once you understand that there are three things that can be money, then you can simply mix your portfolio with a mixture of a little bit of the weak one, a little bit more of the mid one, and a lot of the good one. And I think that's a very helpful metaphor for people. And then the other war, the struggle is going to be Bitcoin versus, stocks and equities versus real estate, REITs, versus gold versus commodities. right? And that's going to be a hard fought one. And there's $100 trillion at stake in both of those struggles for the next decade, right? That's going to play itself out. But if you really think of it like that, then if you want to be effective, let the diplomats sort through the issue of currencies, right? That's their job. And then if you're an evangelist or an educator in the world of Bitcoin, focus upon explaining to people why it's better for you to buy Bitcoin than buy a house in Istanbul. It's better to buy Bitcoin than buy a bar of gold, right? Help with those things, because ultimately you can win that one, right? That's a battle you can win. And you got to choose your battles and choose battles you can win that make you stronger, right? You don't start by picking a battle you can't win that you don't even need to fight. Generally, I believe in capitalism. I think Bitcoin's all about capitalism. And really the ethos of capitalism is you need to be the best in the world in your niche of what you do. If you're going to be a restaurant, you better be the best restaurant of that type in your neighborhood. And if you are, then maybe you'll make money, but maybe you won't make money. There's all sorts of existential risks, right? Maybe your restaurant will get forcibly shut down, right? So you have risks in every business. There are risks in mining. If you can raise lots of capital, mining is a capital intensive industry. If you can raise a lot of capital cheap, then that would be a good reason to go into Bitcoin mining. If you have a lot of rigs, that's a good reason to be mining. If you had energy, if it was free, maybe, but the truth is energy is really the tail wagging the dog here. The world's full of too much energy, and energy is only like 1, 2, 3% of the proposition. If you become a miner and you buy power from somebody else and they cut you off, they can destroy you. So it's a risk factor. But if you told me I have energy at 2 cents a kilowatt hour forever, should I be a Bitcoin miner? Not necessarily. If you can't raise capital, you're still going to get wiped out, right? There's politics, there's capital, there's execution, et cetera. So I like Bitcoin mining. I think it's good business. I also think it's going to get. I also think that it's a business that calls for a very aggressive business strategy. Like you want to get big fast, like raise billions of dollars of capital and buy up all the other miners and buy up all the equipment and then raise billions of dollars of more capital. And I know there's the Bitcoin ideal, which is we want distributed mining. And okay, I'm okay with that, but I just see that when you see someone with 3 football fields full of mining rigs, right, and they're engineering this stuff, you start to think this is getting to be a very scale-intensive, capital-intensive business. So I don't think that I would go into that business unless you really knew what you were doing. My view is